Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's your hosts Ian.
Hello.
And Gary. And today we're going to talk about 1950 movie Harvey. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows James Stewart playing Elwood P. Dowd, who's a bit of an eccentric and hangs around the town with his best friend, Harvey, who is a 6-foot white rabbit.
6 feet 3.5 inches. Now let's stick to the facts.
Harvey is invisible to everybody apart from Elwood, and it falls upon Elwood's family to try and have Elwood institutionalized. But this film is just a magical story about a man, an invisible white rabbit, and the conversations he gets in with people.
This film, for all intents and purposes, has been critically acclaimed ridiculously highly.
Yeah.
This film is like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, 9 on IMDb.
It's a classic.
It is a classic, and that's primarily for the reason that the film is an adaptation of a Pulitzer Prize winning play.
Yeah.
Which did fantastic before this film was picked up. And this film has also got quite a legacy as well, where after the film's critical kind of appeal, it went back onto stage and continued to do tours, and it was a massive draw, won loads of awards, and the actors for the movie were up for Oscar nominations, and some of the actors from the movie actually went on into the stage play, and the stage play kind of lasted over 30 years. This film's also been remade twice. Once was a TV movie with some of the same actors returning, and that was in 1976. And then in the late 1990s, Leslie Nielsen even played the role of one of the characters in a later adaptation. Those two movies were quite terrible. And I also think that's not too much of a reflection on this original 1950s Harvey, which to me, I also found insulting, shallow, and devoid of any humour. The jokes felt flat, the actors were whimsical, just like the script, and there is absolutely nothing here of any real value as a film-going experience, I am afraid.
There is so much of value here. I mean, it's hard not to enjoy this film. I don't understand how you cannot enjoy this film, but it's such a magical journey from the open scene where you see James Stewart leaving his house and opening the gate for Harvey to step out and then him to step out. I'm a massive James Stewart fan, so slightly I'm going to be biased here, but the acting comes across much like watching a play itself. You're following James Stewart having conversations with nobody. And it just cements how brilliant of an actor and how brilliant of a character Elwood is that he's able to have these conversational pieces and walk around the town and just follow with his good friend, who nobody sees.
Is this all right? You sure? Well, I'll give you a hand there. Don't slip. Now, you sure this is all right? You wouldn't rather sit in the booth? Well, all right.
And you spend half the film, if you've not seen the film, you spend half the film believing that he is insane. He has got some kind of mental issues. It is widely known that Elwood is, by today's standards, an alcoholic. But as the film progresses, Harvey seems to make himself more and more open to the people around him. He's mischievous. He makes things disappear, and he opens and closes doors, and it's such a magical experience.
A magical experience is like 2 o'clock in the morning after you're pissed off your face. The alcohol issue that this film kind of whimsically bounces around is forefront in this movie. One of the earliest scenes that we see Elwood, where he's just relaxing at home, he sneaks a book off the shelf and pulls out his bottle of whatever and starts drinking it. There's your first sign of a serious alcohol problem. The fact that he spends the majority of this movie in and out of bars, ordering 2 drinks of every drink, because of course the other drinks for his imaginary friend.
Harvey, I just...
Now, what can I do for you, Mr. Dowd?
What did you have in mind?
What's your order?
2 martinis.
2 martinis.
Harvey, it seems that Vida is having a party this afternoon. And Oh, you knew?
Well, it's not imaginary. The rabbit is real.
I didn't see any rabbit, Ian.
You're not supposed to. That's the magic behind the film. Is that they actually explained that Harvey is a puka.
Puka, from old Celtic mythology, a fairy spirit in animal form.
Which is
which doesn't exist.
which is a mystical Celtic fairy that latches onto people who are socially awkward and social outcasts and just makes friends with them. Or
it's just something that you start to see after you've hit the bottom of too many bottles.
Yeah, that is taking a realistic point and seeing this film from a realistic side in the 21st century that we live in. You can take apart the film and say, he's got an alcoholic problem. He's probably got some mental issues. I mean, I spend a lot of the film thinking that something dark has happened to Elwood.
It's obvious that something catastrophic has happened. The film toys with the idea of the fact that perhaps it was the loss of their mother that's caused this in the long run. But it's obvious, it's evident that Elwood has some serious mental health issues. And this film insultingly plays light with this issue. And it in no way whatsoever explores any of these issues on how to actually help people with these mental health issues.
But based in the 1950s, we are looking at a time where, they didn't have the medical breakthroughs that we have now. A lot of mental issues that they considered made people crazy were actually just, emotional problems that they did have. But there is nothing, I find nothing in this film that makes Elwood seem completely insane or completely eccentric.
Well, it's the fact that he has completely removed himself from reality at this point.
Yes.
That is his way. That is his inner way of defending himself from the realities of the hardships that everyone else endures in their day-to-day.
Yeah, but he states in one of the classic lines, he states that his mother actually said to him, either be smart or be pleasant.
My mother used to say to me, she'd say, in this world, Elwood, you must be, she always called me Elwood. In this world, Elwood, you must be oh so smart or oh so pleasant. Well, for years I was smart. I recommend pleasant.
The mother dying issue, she may have left him with such a nest egg. He doesn't have to work. He has such amount of money that
the film does suggest that he was smart to begin with, and decided that this life of luxury and ignoring anything else that really matters to anybody is actually the more viable option.
But he's the kind of person that we all sometimes strive to be, where he will actually take the time to talk to a stranger. There are moments where he says to people, how about you come over to dinner? And that tells me that he's not trying to force himself onto the characters for any reason.
How often do you go out and just invite random strangers round to your house for dinner, Ian?
Well, I don't. But,
exactly.
But we live in a world now where you do have a difficulty to trust complete strangers, and strangers have a problem of trusting you. But Elwood has lived in his town for such a long amount of time that everybody knows him, and those people who don't know him will learn to know him by coming around his house and telling him his problems. James Stewart's performance is so brilliant because he takes the spotlight off of himself. This is what I love. He is the main character, but he's not the main character as such. The camera will follow his sister Vita, his niece will go around. The doctors,
annoying characters.
Of course they're supposed to be.
Mother, why can't we live like other people?
Little May, do I have to keep reminding you? Your Uncle Elwood is not living with us. We're living with him.
Living with him and his pal.
You promised.
And his pal, Harvey.
Oh, you said that name. You promised you wouldn't say that name, and you said it.
But the portrayal of their characters only allow you to warm to Elwood just as much, because when he walks into the room and he says to you, he's the kind of person who would walk into a room, shake your hand, give you his card, which he does for absolutely everybody, tells them all just to ring me whenever you want and come round, we'll have a drink. And the people only get freaked out when he introduces them to a 6 foot 3.5 inch white rabbit.
No, I think they get freaked out just before that, and that's when they can't immediately amuse him by going to wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
They say, oh, maybe another time, and then he's like, when? When can you come round?
Wouldn't you and your brother like to come and have dinner with us sometime?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
When? When would you be glad to?
Well, I could come any night, but tomorrow I'm on duty all the rest of the week.
Well, tomorrow would be perfect. I would be expecting and delighted to see you, won't we, Vita?
And they're like, well, maybe tomorrow evening? And he's like, brilliant, you will be there.
But
It's like, shit.
that's the beauty of his character, because obviously
That there was just
wants-
whatever was inside of him actually coming to the surface. And you could see that it looks like there's a nasty piece of work hidden beneath all that alcohol.
Would you like to come to my house for dinner tonight?
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Well, no, but you might think that through the dark history of cinema that we've seen. But imagine
in reality,
going to see this film in the 50s, you know, where everybody knew each other and everybody wanted to be each other's friend and everybody wanted to find out their personal things. Elwood is the kind of person who actually takes it upon himself to do it. You know, he takes it upon himself to talk to anybody. And yeah, sometimes they say, well, you know, I can't make it. And he's like, when can you make it over? Because he says in one of the iconic lines when he's in the alleyway with the doctor, and he says, you know, I mainly go to bars with Harvey because people go to bars with these big problems.
Their hopes and their regrets, their loves and their hates, all very large. Because nobody ever brings anything small into a bar.
No one ever brings anything small into a bar.
No one does that. But once him and Harvey have listened to these people's problems, and they probably have some really dark problems if they're at a bar drinking away their problems with gin and whiskey, he then introduces them to Harvey, and after a few drinks they probably see a giant fucking rabbit as well. And they're happy to accept that this white rabbit is there and be like, you know what, yeah, you're not crazy, we're all eccentric sometimes, but I'll take what you're saying to me. It's such a beautiful film. How can you hate it?
There are some really nice nuggets of wisdom that his character gives throughout the majority of the movie.
Yeah,
where I was like, you know what, those sentiments are quite nice and they're quite wise. However, in context to the rest of the film, they bear no meaning. They really don't. And what we're left with is just a carry-on flipping style charade where different people are believing different things and wacky coincidences lead to horrendous things happening to the wrong people. Like his sister, who ends up getting put in the asylum because the doctor's like, well, Elwood, I think your sister's the one with the alcohol problem and she's seeing the rabbit. So with the fact that she's a woman, we're going to lock her up.
Now,
The man
really,
inside wants to talk to you.
No, I don't. No. No, you let me go. Help. Help. Police.
Now, what do we want with the police, love? Both they're no fun.
You let me go. I'm a respectable woman.
That's for sure. Now, come on, lady, be nice or I'll have to pick you up and carry you.
I was like, holy shit, this film is sexist.
No, see, that's one way to look at that scene. Another way to look at it is that it's brilliant comedy. You know, she turns up with Elwood to have him institutionalized because she cannot handle it anymore, which in realistic terms a lot of us would probably do, you know, because he believes this rabbit is around. But Elwood gets dragged into the asylum, and when she sat there talking to Dr. Sanderson, the doctor is the one who has the mistake, because obviously what he is being told from the sister, he believes that it's the sister's way of trying to get Elwood put away before Elwood has her put away, because the Doctor believes he's smarter than everybody else. And that is another beautiful part of the film, because it takes an aspect of somebody's intelligence where somebody will stand there and go, I'm smarter than everybody else and this is how, and then completely reverses it on them and makes them turn out to be a complete imbecile.
Good, because he was a chauvinistic pig.
He was a chauvinistic pig.
Well, then go into your routine, you know, the eyes, the swish, the works. I'm immune to it, but I've seen it work on some people, some of the patients out here. Now, you get them down here, Kelly, if you have to do a striptease.
I cannot stand the way that this movie's female actors are portrayed. The women in this film are just... They're just... I understand that it's the golden age of sort of black and white cinema, but the women in this film are seen as social climbers, and they're seen as just the love interest and people that just can't seem to do anything right.
But with that kind of thought, you could probably take that same kind of thought with classic films like Casablanca. You know, female characters back in the 50s were just these side characters. The camera was mainly focused on the male characters.
But for a contemporary audience, it is really, really difficult to watch it in this film in particular. For me, it was.
But to reverse it, I mean, it's like, obviously, few spoilers. If we are
it's
talking
a 60-year-old movie.
60-year-old film, you know. It's like the final scene, you know, the sister has spent most of the film, you know, trying to have him institutionalized and believes that she's smarter than everybody else, much like the doctor and the psychologist and the sister, and that they believe that, you know, Elwood is completely insane and that Harvey doesn't exist. But then these little things start to actually make her realize that her little aspects that she might say might make her sound crazy. Like when she's on the phone to Elwood and she's like, oh, Harvey's upstairs in the bath. And then Elwood's like, oh no, Harvey's just walked into the bar. And she's like, oh, Myrtle May, make sure that person gets out of the bath, and realizes, oh shit, I'm going crazy, you know? And then it leads up to the final part where she's ready to have Elwood. And this is another beautiful aspect of the film. Elwood is willing on doing anything for anybody, you know, especially his sister. He loves her so much that he wants to see her happy. He doesn't want to get rid of Harvey, but he doesn't want his sister to be upset. So he willingly walks into the doctor's office to have an injection to shock him back into reality. And a simple taxi driver, this actor just walks on screen and kind of explains to the sister that he's done this route so many times that the people come up to the institute happy and then leave normal like everybody else and angry.
They scream at me to hurry. They got no faith in me and my buggy. Yet, it's the same cab, same driver, and we're going back over the very same road. It's no fun. And no tips.
My brother would have tipped you anyway. He's very generous. He always has been.
Not after this, he won't be. After this, he'll be a perfectly normal human being. And you know what stinkers they are.
And, you know, the sister realizes she doesn't want that. She wants her brother to be happy just as she's happy. And if he sees a 6-foot white rabbit, then... fucking so be it, you know. But it's the little aspects. I mean, how can you say that the rabbit isn't there when the doctor believes he's being followed by the rabbit? You know, he has conversations with the rabbit. It's the aspect. I hate to use the word again, but it's the beauty of the film of we spend our lives believing in the norm and the social, you know, the social normality that we're supposed to follow. And then somebody comes along with this eccentric idea, and you can stand there on the side and say, no, I'm not fucking following that. Or have an open mind and go, you know what? Okay, I'll accept it for a little bit, and if it works, it works. And that's the fucking beauty of this film.
Fly specks. Fly specks. I've been spending my life among fly specks while miracles have been leaning on lampposts at 18th and Fairfax.
Yeah, this film it's a genteel film. There's nothing really aggressive or riveting or action-packed.
Yeah.
It's just slapstick farcical humour, to which, for me, fell flat. Every single joke in this movie bombed. I didn't break a laugh once. I didn't even smile once throughout the entire film, to the extent where I actually fell asleep twice watching the film and had to rewatch the film several times in order to actually stay focused throughout its duration, because it was just that difficult to get through.
Favourite scene?
I don't have a favourite scene for this movie at all. I appreciate one sequence in the movie where it was just there was no edits, and it was a scene in the asylum where the camera is in the hallway. I can't remember if it was the asylum or the house now. It's kind of blurred into one. The camera kind of sits there and people are coming in and out of different doors and going into different rooms. And the camera just keeps panning left and right.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool sequence. However, it did just show how staged the film production was based on the stage production. Yeah. So as a result, the film kind of felt flat. And that was... even more evident in the remakes where it became even more staged, especially for the TV production. Just awful.
I'm gonna have multiple favourite scenes just for you in this. James Stewart, any scene in Harvey with James Stewart in is just absolutely magical. He just exudes fucking acting class on screen. It's some of the lines and dialogue he has. The alleyway sequence where he sits with the doctor and explains how he met Harvey. You know, the sequence where he's in the institute. And they sit him down. Dr. Sanderson sits him down, and he's trying to explain to him that Harvey is there, but they just keep cutting him off. And they're just having this conversation with him. They don't realise that he's actually sat next to a giant white rabbit. It's
just awful.
It's so brilliant. I love the sequence at the end as well, where the head doctor, Dr. Chumley, sits Elwood down, and then they end up reversing roles, where Chumley is this patient and Elwood is the psychiatrist, and they just have this conversation about what he wants to do. It's such a beautiful film. I personally haven't watched the remakes, mainly because remakes don't work for me, and so I would rather stick with the original and just watch the original over and over again. I would try and watch the remakes, but I feel it would lose it would lose something because it isn't the original. And that's why I highly recommend this film. If you've never seen Harvey, if you call yourself a cinema fan and think that you can watch all types of films, get a copy of Harvey, stick it on, sit down and watch it. Watch a brilliant performance from James Stewart, brilliant acting from all the other characters, and just imagine you're watching a play. It's just so beautiful.
I don't recommend you go and watch Harvey at all. Forget what Ian's just said. You're not missing out on anything. In fact, you should probably go and watch Drop Dead Fred with Rick Mayall. Because that there's far more entertaining.
Just as good as Harvey.
Failing that, you should watch Wilfred with Elijah Wood. Or failing that, go and watch the original Wilfred TV series. Much, much better than Harvey, where it actually explores psychological issues in depth. Unlike Harvey, where it just whimsically glances over everything. However, I will say that the very end of the movie Harvey does have quite an impactful message, which you did just mention earlier, where the taxi driver does explain to them. He was like, look, lady, do you really want your brother, who is in his own fairy fantasy world, do you really want to remove him from that and bring him to this shit existence of life where the rest of us kind of dwell? And it's like, so perhaps the film is suggesting that those with delusions are actually in a better place. And I do like to explore that idea. And unfortunately, this film kind of hits that at the end of the movie and then doesn't really go anywhere.
Too much Dark Souls.
Well, it's also not to say that this movie has continued to have an impact in other media forms. For example, in the very first episode of The Invisible Man, there is a rabbit in the cage with the collar Harvey. Also, to a joke that I never actually got until recently in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when Dr. Doom is in the bar and he's asking if anyone has seen this tall white rabbit, and the bartender goes, well, say hello to my friend Harvey. And so you're just like, that's where that's from. It's not funny.
He laughs.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Would you like to come to my house for dinner tonight?